Good to be with all of you. I'm so tempted to do this YMCA dance up here, but I'm going to spare all of you that. But in the spirit of that, I look around this room and I look at part of the theme of today of looking at, revival, what's happening in kind of business and teams and thinking about today. And we were talking a little bit about Siemens owns one of the first energy turbine manufacturers in the United States in Norwood, Ohio. And I spent some time there. And when you think back 130, 140 years and think about what it took to create success then, I'm interested in how you have 50,000 employees in America, 1,200 here. What is different between Siemens then and Siemens today when it comes to making an operation work?
Great question and a great way to start. Yeah, let me just start by saying Siemens is the biggest, oldest company in the world. So for over 170 years worldwide, 160 years here in the US, and you ask yourself, how do you keep a thread like that going? And it's fascinating because it has nothing to do with technology, but it has everything to do with ingenuity. The idea that Werner von Siemens, as he began his company, wanted to address things that really made a difference at that time, bringing technology to society at a time when communication was just being developed, where power generation was becoming a thing, electricity. And this has been the thread that has run throughout Siemens history, ingenuity. So here we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and we've gone from steam to electric to automated and now digital. And Pittsburgh tells that story too, right? Pittsburgh is often spoken of as it used to be a steel city, and now it's a tech city, but that misses the point. The real point is that what's happening now is the convergence of the real world and the digital world. The bringing together of both the physical manufacturing that Siemens has long been engaged with, and now what digital technologies can do for us, and taking things to the next level. So, yeah. So
when you think about it, we were talking about the people dimension, and I'm always sort of, I know the answer to this question, but, it still feels uncomfortable out there when we look at robotics, you look at the digital age that's hitting us, you look at what's coming on. You ask, you think back to that 2001 article by Bill Joy on the front of Wired magazine called "The Future Doesn't Need Us." Do people have a place in Siemens' future?
Absolutely.
More than buyers?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, actually, so let's think about from the first time a human picked up a rock and used it as a tool, right? Tools have elevated the role of the human. Tools have made us more productive. And what's happening right now, in fact, Ginny Rometty is the one who talks about this most clearly.
Ginny's the CEO of IBM.
What she'll say is it's not artificial intelligence, it's augmented intelligence. And the role of people at each one of these stages, as we've introduced new tools and technologies, has been elevated. In fact, what we're working on right now at Siemens is what is humanly possible? What's humanly possible? We're going to be able to do things with the help of technology that we've never been able to accomplish before.
One of the big changes in 100 years and it's a big focus of the Atlantic in our editorial work, but it's a political issue in California and other places, is workplace diversity, gender, race, what's going on in communities. And when I think back again to the story over a century ago, that was not an obsession of the corporate world. It was not obsession even of communities and states and local areas. So I'm interested in how you look at the question of gender and racial diversity and that dimension of your workforce and how it contrasts with the past. How do you think about diversity?
Oh, gosh. Diversity is a huge topic for me personally, and it's a big topic for us as a corporation.
And why is it a topic for you personally?
For me personally, I began my career really not knowing where things would lead. And boy, my eyes have been opened to the kind of purpose I can help fulfill. I'm a purpose-driven individual, and this idea that I get to work at Siemens and I get to work on mega trends and solving problems that desperately need to be tackled in the world with the talent of our workforce. But here's the question. If the talent pipeline is only half full, what are we missing out on?
Right.
Now, so people have been saying to me, yeah, Barb, I hear you say diversity really matters, but help me understand why. And I told Steve before this, ask me about dodgeball.
I just know the movie.
Well, here we are in a gym,
Good
right? And I
yeah.
understand some of the guests last night in this hotel played dodgeball.
Really?
Yeah, raise your hand if you played dodgeball last night. Cast your mind back to middle school gym class. And you've just been tapped to be the captain of a team. And now you're going to stand in front of the whole class and you're going to pick the members of your team. Well, in dodgeball, the skills that are needed are pretty well distributed through the population. Agility, speed, hey, a good throwing arm, et cetera. It can take all kinds of talent to be great at dodgeball. But what if half the class didn't show up that day? What if a bunch of the kids in your town didn't go to that school but went to another school instead? What if you just didn't have access to those folks? You'd pick your team, you'd take the best you've got, and you'd play your game of dodgeball. You and your opponent would both play great games of dodgeball, but you wouldn't be playing world-class dodgeball. Are you following my point here? My point is, what we're trying to do in manufacturing is get more people into the room. I want more people to know that there are great careers in manufacturing and that the manufacturing world is high tech and you can take advantage of all those digital skills as well. Get in the room, raise your hand, get on the team, because what we want to do is elevate the game, not just for Siemens, but for the entire sector.
Do you think, I've been all around the country doing events like this, looking at the future of manufacturing, digital participation. And one of the things that's become very clear, talking across generations, is that manufacturing has a very clear stigma. That a lot of people don't want to get into manufacturing, that their grandparents, their parents of young people today say, this was an industry that was hollowed out, we were cheated, pensions were taken, it's a bad story. And become a lawyer or a doctor or something else and go a different route. What do you think needs to be done to turn that around? Because I don't know if you agree that there's a stigma, but I got to tell you, I see it all across the country and wonder what you think needs to be done.
Yeah, we're working on this hard. In fact, one of the great privileges of my position is I serve as the chairman of the board of the Siemens Foundation. We're investing a significant amount each year, and what we shifted our focus a couple years ago from a world-class science competition to addressing the middle skills. The middle skills of coupling manufacturing with the technical skills that are going to make manufacturing truly great. And we actually helped commission a study, and we asked parents and students who are in career technical education, what is it that drives you? And the #1 answer that came back is purpose. Purpose over future earnings, et cetera. So we're asking that question of what would it take to draw people back in? And right now, I think the key message is going to be purpose, the things that we can accomplish. I mean, there's just so much that can only be done in the physical world. And we have issues to deal with in power production, in future of manufacturing, in the connected cities and the technology we'll use to advance our communities. I think the hard part now is to go reach those potential dodgeball players where they are early in their careers.
Let me ask you, how many of you are affiliated, went to walk through Carnegie Mellon at any point? Some of you? Yeah, Carnegie Mellon. How many of you are from California? Been there? So I am. So I don't mean any offense to Californians, but one of the interesting questions is that I'm interested is competition for talent. And California is clear. You've got this massive engine. You've got Silicon Valley. You've got Stanford University. All of that lore about what was doing. But I was reading last night about how incredible the universities in this area are, and particularly Carnegie Mellon and things like autonomous vehicles. We're going to have people that are attached to different universities in this area here. But so there's obviously talent that's coming out of this region. But if you were to say, move into an area of autonomous vehicles or data applied to other kind of technological problems we have there, how do you compete against Google? How do you compete against California if you were here?
Yeah, right. And in fact, we are. We are. What a lot of people
how do you beat them?
What a lot of people don't know is that Siemens is one of the top 10 software companies in the world. How do we beat them? We offer something that a lot of today's tech companies can't offer, and that is the chance to work on technology that's going to endure for decades. The things that we're working on right now are part of infrastructure. The power infrastructure of the US is going through a massive transformation right now. The chance to work in that realm is truly inspiring for a lot of people today. So folks are making the choice to come and work with us because of what they get to work on and because of who they get to work on it with. So that sense of team, shared mission, purpose, that's creating a real spirit for us. And people are opting and choosing to be with us. Now, I get it. You know, there are a lot of folks who say, hey, I'm going for the money, I'm going for the options. You know, it's exciting to be part of a startup mentality, et cetera. Well, what we're trying to do is create that startup mentality inside our own facilities. So we're partnering with educational institutions. Here in Pittsburgh, we're working actually with the manufacturing institutes and getting that spirit of innovation going here. And it surprises the heck out of people when they discover that in these industries, there's so much edginess.
You know, you're probably not going to like this question, but you know, when I see firms like GE out there, and obviously GE's in a lot of space, or Hitachi in Japan, Siemens here, you're huge. You make everything, or you used to make everything, but you're in power grids, smart cities, all of this, but you're absolutely enormous globally. And so I am interested in this question of whether, when someone talks about innovation inside and trying to act like a startup, whether that is, you know, a fig leaf for the fact that you're really a dinosaur, or how do you make it work? How do you know, for instance, Google in the robotics space is accused by some of having bought all the robotics companies at one point that were promising and essentially sat on it and basically held back the robotics industry in the United States. And it's frustrated a lot of people in the robotics sector. How do you keep from being an innovation stifler in contrast to an innovation enabler?
Yeah, this is something that takes actual strategy. And let's look at layers of innovation. Yeah, of course, one of the most important things we have to do is deliver, right? So we've got this incredible capacity to actually deliver. One of the things I like best is that we can do big things like go to Egypt and say, we'll increase your power supply by 50%. And 3 years later, we've built the power plants, and that society has power that they never had before. This is the same company, though, and I'm going to be going tomorrow to Palo Alto to meet our team from Next 47. Siemens was founded in 1847. This is the Next 47, a venture capital firm inside the corporation, working with startups. And you know that in California, there's way more money than there are ideas, right? And so what is it that would say to a startup, hey, I want to work with Siemens? Well, what we do is we open up our portfolio and we give those startups access to our customer base. Right? So starting on the very front with where are we going to place our bets in some new technologies, and then thinking about corporate technologies. We're investing $6 billion annually, globally, in research and development. So we have pure research going on in Princeton and also out in California and other centers around the world. Now take that layer of innovation and move one step closer to the market. And in each of our operating companies, we have teams who are chartered with looking ahead and what is the next thing. So actually we've got folks who are walking around dreaming about what the world is going to be like in another, I used to say 10 years, but who thinks they can predict 10 years from now? I can't. So they're walking around looking at how do I take today's know-how and apply it to a better future.
Barbara, before I go to all the audience and get your comments, questions, and thoughts, I know that you have said that, and I know you have a mathematics degree, but you found the number of women entering technical degree programs very discouraging. So I'm interested in what you see out there, what it would take to turn that around in ways that you would be less discouraged.
I often think, you know, part of the equation is, of course, the unconscious biases that we all deal with. But a second thing is simply the stories we tell ourselves. You know, how often do you wake up in the morning and you say, hey, you know, this is what I'm good at and this is what I'm not so good at. And I think women need to hit pause for a moment and say, I could be good at that. And let me give it a shot. So I've had the privilege of coming up through a technical career and finding myself in a position where my skills and abilities are vitally needed in our industry. I think more women need to question that. Another thing is men and women wonder about how parenting affects their overall career. And a lot of women traditionally have said, boy, if I take time off for kids, that's going to put a big dent into, you know, my career plans. Well, careers last decades longer now than they did when I got started in the 1980s. And so my message to folks is, you have time. Take your time with your family. Do what's right for the kids and be there for them. And know that you can engage and really advance in a career that's going to give you decades of productive years after the children are raised.
Take a swipe at somebody. Do you think there's anybody wrong in that equation? You know, when I look at women in the legal profession or others, they're penalized in their provision if they take time off for their family. I just want to, you to be nasty to someone. You're so nice. Anyone you think should pick up their act a little bit in terms of making that easier, not punishing women's careers and whatnot, or any spouse's career for taking a sidestep to deal with these things. When I look at the social compact, I'm just wondering if what we have today works. Just real short form, and I want to go to folks out.
Listen, I think we have to question everything, and so I think it's in the hands of the person who wants to do something now, right? Mm-hmm. The laws of the land are such that we have a fair shot on goal, and I say now, if you want to do something, then you need to raise your hand and say, hey, here's what's holding me back, and let me help fix that.
Great. Let me go to all of you. Questions, answers, comments.
Yeah, I'll take answers too. Come on.
Cries of protest. I'll go to my friend in orange in the front if we don't get any question. You have one? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Todd. I'm picking on him because he's got a great outfit. The orange. I love that orange. So, yes.
One of the things that I found in my career that drives diversity is flexibility. Can you talk a little bit about what Siemens is doing to provide a flexible workplace for their employees?
Right.
Yeah,
Did you hear that?
Yeah, the
Could
question
you
about...
repeat it? Because I couldn't hear it. Yeah. No, not her. I would just...
Yeah,
why don't you give us
the question is, the comment is one of the real tools to help women, especially in the workplace, is flexibility for balance. And what are we doing at Siemens? I think we have traditionally provided, what I'll call industry competitive offerings. Flex work where that's possible, teleworking, work from home when that's possible. I have an office in Washington, D.C., and on many days you'll see the workforce kind of flow in mid-morning and people start to drift out mid-afternoon. And yet it's one of the most productive teams I've ever dealt with. We offer those. We offer, family-friendly benefits, et cetera. But now we're really thinking about more. We're investing $50 million a year in ongoing education, because the really key thing now is agility, the ability to learn as people progress through. So that's where we're morphing our programs. Another question.
Hi, I have a question. We seem to be going through a period of time right now where there's mixed messaging, and in some cases even messaging against diversity and inclusion in our society. What are some things that Siemens and other companies and our regional leaders here in Pittsburgh can be doing to make sure that this conversation keeps expanding and moving forward? Thank
you for that great question. Did you hear that?
I want to make sure I understood it. Why don't you?
So the question is, the echo in here, you guys I hope can hear everything, is essentially what can we do to keep the discussion about inclusion and diversity expanding in a time where some of those topics are so politically toxic. I'm adding some words that, the terrain out there throughout society is that there's a big movement against diversity and inclusion, if you will. What is Siemens doing to continue to expand that conversation rather than to acquiesce to one?
I'm really glad.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question, because there's something else going on in our society right now, which is we have an administration that is saying, frankly, we want to have less regulation, we want to get out of the way, right? So businesses have this opportunity to step forward and lead. And I'm going to tell you, businesses have a responsibility to lead. We provide for jobs that sustain families, and so we've got a responsibility to keep this thread going. The reason we're talking about it as Siemens is because it's a business imperative. The unemployment is at an all-time low, and what we've got to do is make sure that we have access to people in order to keep our business going into the future. So for us, this dialogue is all about business success, and it actually shows through in the bottom line. I'm proud of the fact that we do speak up as a company. And as you look across society right now, you are seeing more companies step up and speak up. It's time.
Just to wrap up, I'm going to acknowledge something that I think is really cool about Siemens that we haven't talked about. I'm obsessed with Mars for whatever weird reason, and the Curiosity rover, which is a she, by the way, in terms of a she Curiosity, was essentially powered and designed in part by Siemens PLM software. So for me, thank you for that. I like rovers.
There's more on its way.
Yeah, so just real quickly, what's the next coolest thing we don't know that you're doing that you can share with us that no one else knows?
That no one else knows.
Yeah.
Let's see. Something we just talked about last week in Berlin at the Global Management Conference for Siemens. We had a chance to get a glimpse into what's coming with digitalization. Say that word, everybody, digitalization, right? Where is this going to take us? And we had a chance to see what's happening in manufacturing is the next generation of what you just talked about with product lifecycle management. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks of computer programming as this really geeky, difficult thing. Siemens just purchased Mendix. Mendix gives us a low-code environment so that people can have more intuitive interaction with the automated systems that we'll be working with. So watch this space.
So she may have just shared something with us that I have no idea how to understand. So that may have been a big zinger, and we won't know for a while. But ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Humpton,
thank you so much.
Chief Executive Officer of Siemens USA.